ready to come to order in about another minute or so, and for our folks that might be viewing at home, and thank all of you for being here. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you that are joining us in person tonight, and we welcome you. We have some special presentations and for recognizing some of our volunteers here in the county tonight. We're glad to have each one of you with us, so we will officially call to order the September meeting of the Randolph County Board of Commissioners. And for our citizens who are watching from home or might be watching on YouTube later, we welcome you also to our meeting. And we continue to meet in this fashion. We thank all of you for recognizing the social distancing tonight as we go through this process. Still a little different from what we've been accustomed to across the years, but we will learn to do that, and we will get along fine. So thank all of you for being here. We are meeting on the second Tuesday of the month, the first Monday being Labor Day, and it was the latest that it could be and still be the first Monday, so September the 7th. And so we are meeting one day later in recognition of the Labor Day holiday. So I've asked Commissioner Haywood if she would do our invocation tonight, and then I'll ask all of you to stand, and when she completes, then we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you again for joining us. Oh.
Let us pray. Almighty God, it is with a grateful heart that we come here this evening. The weather's cooler. We are re-energized from the heat and the humidity of the summer, and we know that fall is here as the days are getting shorter. It is a reminder that our seasons come and go just as they should, and that you are God and you are in control. We thank you for that. I thank you for the citizens that we represent. It is a challenge to try to serve each citizen, but remind each of us, oh God, that when we get into these seats, into these roles as commissioners, that all partisanship goes aside and that we represent each citizen in Randolph County. Help us to do it wisely. Help us to do it well. I thank you for our employees who go to work each day and serve and try to offer all the services that we possibly can to our citizens. I thank you for the volunteers, our citizens who volunteer in so many different capacities. Even as we recognize those tonight, we know that we cannot do it all. Our employees can't do it all. And our citizens that volunteer so much of their time to meet the needs of others, I just pray that you would honor them and help them to know that we greatly appreciate them. Now, Father, tonight I ask that you would give us wisdom as we do business, show us the way through the challenges that we face during this time of COVID. I pray that you would watch over our people, help us to be wise, protect us, and help us to look out for one another. Thank you, God, for your presence here tonight. It's in the strong name of Jesus that I make this prayer, and I thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Hope. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Hope, for that beautiful prayer and on such short notice. So thank you very much. Okay, as I mentioned, we do have some special recognition tonight, and Elizabeth Mitchell is going to come to introduce us to these folks. And for those of you that are being recognized, I'm going to ask all the commissioners to come out. We won't do handshakes, but we're going to ask you to stay up front when I give you the certificate, so for photos before we go sit down. So, Elizabeth, if you'll give us a second to join you out front. Thank you for.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Randolph County. We are thrilled to be here this evening and to really tell you about some very special people that we have with us this evening. And as the commissioners come out, I will tell you about our first volunteer. Our first volunteer is Jose Allen, and Jose Allen works with Habitat. Wanda Pegg from Habitat is here this evening with him. Let me tell you a little bit about Jose. The Habitat for Humanity Restore has benefited in countless ways from generous support of this young volunteer over the past 3 years. Working 5 to 6 hours and 4 to 5 days a week, Jose Allen has provided the Restore with an unpaid employee, freeing up substantial resources to be applied to the Habitat's mission. In addition, his willingness to help out whenever he is needed, and the ability to communicate well with customers and staff. His good humor, his willingness to lead by example has made him an indispensable part of the Restore operations. Jose Allen represents the best of what giving of oneself means when it comes to helping others. Jose, would you come forward at this moment? Let's congratulate Jose. Stand right over there. Jose, I'm going to give you this as well. That's from the governor. We were not able to have our meeting, but he has a signed certificate from the governor of North Carolina and a pin to wear. So if you would just stay there for a second, thank you. Our next individual that is being awarded tonight is being awarded this award posthumously, and her name was Zoe Faircloth. I loved Zoe. She was a wonderful lady. I just have to say that. And I think a lot of folks in this room probably know her, so forgive me, and I will try to read all these wonderful things about her. Zoe Faircloth passed away December 24th, 2019. She made a measurable impact over decades as a passionate volunteer for many community organizations, particularly the Randolph Senior Adults Association. Ms. Faircloth helped found the annual Miss Senior Randolph County pageant and was the pageant director for over 13 years. She was a good supporter of veterans and law enforcement. She organized many community events to raise funds for local veterans. When thanked for her service, she'd reply, "All I want is for you to pay it forward when you can." Her life of service embodies the missions of the organization she served. And Zoe's brother is here this evening to accept her award. If you would come on forward. Our next volunteer this evening is Ava Harrington, and Ava is with the American Red Cross. Ava Harrington is a volunteer disaster responder with the American Red Cross. She was moved by scenes following Hurricane Katrina to volunteer for work in shelters in Louisiana. She is employed full-time and uses her vacation weeks to deploy to large-scale disasters involving 6 days of 12-hour shifts a week. She has worked 9 major disasters since Katrina, She is the recipient of the Red Cross's highest award, the Clara Barton Award. And also, to share with you this evening, Miss Ava Harrington is also the recipient of the Governor's Medallion Award, making her one of the top 25 volunteers in the state. Let's have Ava come forward. Our next program this evening that we are going to recognize is the Pet Therapy Program. Ann Evans, Laura Cooper, Marsha Brogdon, and Liam Kelly. And they have dogs too that come with them. So if you're all familiar with pet therapy, wonderful program. So let me read about what they do. At Randolph Health, the healing process begins the minute a patient or family member walks in the door. Since 2015, pet therapy has been a part of the healing process. Pet therapists are compassionate volunteers who are highly skilled in the application of pet therapy and spend many hours training their canine associates to meet program guidelines and attain certification. The optimism and happiness of a therapy dog provides is one that cannot be measured by a doctor's instruments. Although studies show that pet therapy can lower blood pressure, slow heart rate, lessen pain, calm anxiety, and ease depression. Randolph Health receives many calls and cards from patients telling them how much they loved the pet visit whilst they were in the hospital. Ladies, if you would come forward. Yep. Let's do that social distancing, right, Commissioner? Absolutely, we will indeed. You can come up there. There you go. All right. Our next award recipient is Ruth Scallon, and Ruth was recognized by the Randolph County Democratic Party. While nominated by the Randolph County Democratic Party, Ruth Scallon volunteers with many organizations, going above and beyond to help others. While she is the second vice president and volunteer coordinator for the local Democrats, she is also a longtime zoo volunteer, working as a trained facilitator, mentor to new volunteers, receptionist, and zoo host. She received the Silver Level Zoo Presidential Volunteer Service Award and the Guest Services Rock Star. She has served 2 terms on the Randolph County Aging Services Planning Committee and is a regular volunteer with Christians United Outreach Center's food pantry. She is also active at St. John's Catholic Church. Coming up. Ruth. All right. Our next volunteer that we'll recognize is Lauren Wood, and Lauren is with NC Zoo. Miss Wood is a science teacher in the Randolph County Schools for the past 5 years at the Randolph County Early College High School. In addition to her classroom duties, she is the faculty advisor for the Beta Club, overseeing its many service projects. Mrs. Wood and the Beta Club have been particularly involved with services to the North Carolina Zoo. In 2019, club members logged nearly 1,500 hours in zoo projects and events this past year. 150 students worked with Keep Randolph County Beautiful to remove over 10,000 pounds of trash from around Worthville Dam. Her commitment to volunteerism is an inspiration to her students and leaves a lasting legacy in the county. Lauren, if you would join us. We do have one volunteer who is not with us this evening, but I would like to recognize him because I think it's important that we do that. And ladies, if I haven't given you these, I will. Forgetting them. Our volunteer who is not here this evening is Glenn Lowry. Glenn is a seasoned volunteer with Randolph Health. logging 2,716 hours of service in less than 2 years. His particular focus has been working through the Faith Health Initiative, linking the working poor who cannot afford health service and health insurance, and they do not qualify for Medicare or insurance under the Affordable Care Act. He finds resources for free care, medication assistance, as well as other community health resources. His military experience allowed him the opportunity to see how he could streamline the aid process for individuals coming through the hospital. He is also an active member, and I should say a good friend of mine, with the Church of the Good Shepherd, serving in various committees. I'm going to say this, ladies and gentlemen, to everyone who is here, and I think Ms. Hope said it very well in her prayer. We could not do what we do in this county. Look around and see how many organizations are identified. Without your time and resources and just being there, you have blessed every single one of us in this room tonight. I certainly know I've been blessed. I know the commissioners are blessed. And we thank you for giving of your time and your energy, and I can't say thank you enough. So thank you so much, and I will take Glenn's with me. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we'll take a picture really quick. Come together. Come together. I know you don't really want to, but it's okay. I know everybody is smiling under their mask, so this is wonderful. Just smile under your mask. Absolutely.
Hold on, let me make sure I get everybody. Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, do we have any special presentations, public speakers? Okay, we have no anything in Hal, anything in writing or any emails for public comment? All right. Our next item is the consent agenda that has been presented for your consent tonight. Does anyone want to take any one of those off? Or I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those no, and the consent agenda is passed. Our first item of new business tonight is a presentation on the capital improvement plan for Ashboro High School. Dr. Woody is here, and Aaron, I'll let you do the introductions, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chairman Fry, commissioners, members of the government team here. It is my privilege and honor to be before you tonight to give you a little bit of an update on our project and our operations processes, as well as make a formal request on some funds and maybe some advancement of some funds to help us to continue to move into phase 3 of our project. As I get started this evening, I want to recognize a few important people. Certainly members of our board. I know Mr. Cheek is here with us tonight. I'm looking around to see any of our other board members, but thrilled to have him with us. Sandra Spivey, our Executive Director of Finances in Asheboro City Schools, kind of my right-hand person and master of all numbers, so we're thrilled with her and appreciative of her. And we also have representatives from the Smith Senate architecture firm who's have been working with our school district, and again, working in this part of North Carolina. We're appreciative to their work and the great work that they've done to help prepare us for certainly tonight and the exciting things that are happening in our district. So what I'd like to do, I have just a couple slides for you tonight, and just a few talking points, and certainly we'll entertain questions. But what I want to do is kick off tonight and just tell you we've had a really great start to the school year. As you know, we have been actually working remotely, working in what we call Plan C. Staff are reporting to work each day, and they're delivering instruction remotely from their classroom and their workspace to our students at home. It's been very, very successful. We do have a board meeting this Thursday night to talk about continued plans and options as we hope to bring students back into our district, potentially in a hybrid model, but we will be meeting this Thursday night to discuss those things. Also, I'm thrilled to tell you a couple just talking points here this evening about where we've been and where we've come. Since March 16th, we have delivered over almost 505,000 meals, 504,938 meals delivered to families all across Asheboro. We're really proud of that. We're thrilled with that. It's been a tremendous amount of work to make that happen. And so that's been a key part of our continued operations and plans to connect with students and families. We've also updated our one-to-one technology, so all students in Asheboro City Schools, effective this fall as we started school, pre-K all the way through 12th grade, have their own device. That has distinctly helped us to be able to make some key decisions about safety and about remote learning and continuing to move forward with instruction in spite of students not actually reporting to our physical buildings. We've purchased individual iPads for pre-K students all the way through 2nd grade, Chromebooks for 3rd grade through 12th grade, and we've purchased 450 hotspots. We've worked with the city, we've worked with some business leaders, we've worked with churches, and all of our continued organizations all across our city to make sure that students have access to free internet and are able to access our programming. But the reason I'm here tonight is, of course, to begin sharing, first of all, a sincere appreciation for the work that you've done and the support that you've given us. As Randolph County Commissioners, you have worked with us, provided for us, supported us through Phase 1 and Phase 2 of our extensive addition and renovation project. And as a reminder, this is the largest capital improvement undertaking by our district. We talk a lot about the work taking place at Asheboro High School, but we certainly don't want to forget the work that's taking place at our kitchens at Charles McCrary and Lindley Park Elementary School, as well as the HVAC units in our middle school gyms. In the past 3 years, these renovations and the addition at Asheboro High School will allow us to continue serving students in Asheboro for many, many, many years to come. We couldn't have even approached this project without your support and your help, and we just sincerely want to say thank you. And on behalf of Asheboro City Schools Board of Education, that is what I'm doing. I want to extend a very sincere gratitude, and also to the taxpayers of Asheboro and Randolph County. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We look forward with great hopefulness for the future, and we just again appreciate the partnership and what you've done to support young people through these projects. As you look at the next slide, this is really Phase 1. We're really thrilled with this. We have a small ribbon cutting due to social distancing. Commissioner Fry, as you've lifted up tonight, due to social distancing, we have a small ribbon cutting ceremony set up for this coming Thursday evening prior to our board meeting, but we're thrilled with the space. It's absolutely incredible. We've added, we estimate, I think it's about 42,000 square feet with the new addition. So just to recap, Phase 1 involved the construction of the addition at Asheboro High School, as well as the renovation of our band and chorus room, the 400 building, which includes our CTE classrooms. This addition has provided 14 new classrooms, completely outfitted with updated technology. We're thrilled with the flexible learning spaces, the full-service kitchen and dining spaces. We're ADA compliant. Our cultural arts program, including the band room, the chorus room, and our performing arts center, have all been updated to comply with ADA, as well as our 400 building. We've replaced aging main HVAC components, such as our chillers and our boilers. We've laid the groundwork for Phase 3 renovations, eliminating a duplication of life safety security efforts such as fire alarms and sprinkler systems. So again, very excited about this. This enhances our core capacity, and it brings us up to compliance for where we need it to be with ADA. The next slide is Phase 2. Just want to again mention this and show a few pictures to you and to the taxpayers and the community. In Phase 2, we've been able to accomplish a number of things with our elementary schools and certainly our middle schools. We installed the HVAC units at both North Asheboro Middle School and South Asheboro Middle School. That really helped to outfit and enhance our gymnasiums. We've also renovated the Charles W. McCreary and Lindley Park Elementary School kitchens. We did a little research the last couple of weeks, and we were reminded that those spaces were actually outfitted in the 1950s. So that dramatically brings us up to where we need to be in 2020. So thank you again. Can't say it enough for the support and the financial support and the encouragement that you have done as commissioners in our county. So tonight, I come before you, and I know you have a number of things in front of you. You have our budget outline, you have what our expenses are proposed to be, but we're requesting funding for the final phase of this capital improvement project. We've certainly spent a number of months, really years, talking about this. You have been super gracious to come out and to tour the facilities, to listen to our presentations, to talk about dollars and cents. But we do have a tremendous need at Asheboro High School to replace a number of our infrastructure systems throughout the original building, the building that was constructed over 70 years ago. And we know here in Asheboro and all around Randolph County, folks who have attended, really in this part of North Carolina, folks who have attended Asheboro High School, graduated from Asheboro High School, been a part of the Asheboro City School system. There is tremendous pride about the facility and the building. It's one of the first things you see as you come through Asheboro. If you're making your way to the zoo, oftentimes making your way to the beach or the mountains, you come through on 64 and you see our high school, you see our football field, you see the beautiful aspects that really lift up a lot of what our district is about in terms of symbolism. So we do want to we need to update the infrastructure, HVAC, plumbing, electrical systems. We want to improve the life safety, fire alarm, sprinkler system, security systems. New finishes with our floors, our ceilings, our walls, and upgrading our cafeteria, restrooms, locker rooms, and again, making some updates to our Performing Arts Center. We also want to address any remaining ADA compliance issues. I know you've taken time over the last couple years. I certainly have spent a lot of time there walking through some of the previous hallways that are extremely narrow. And quite frankly, they don't come anywhere near complying to what we're supposed to do, what we need to do for young people and certainly for adults. So with the additional phase, we will eradicate those issues, and we will have, quite frankly, the most state-of-the-art high school in North Carolina by the time we finish this, and we're really, really excited about it. So to summarize, tonight we are asking for your approval to move forward with Phase 3 of the Asheboro High School renovation. The project budget is estimated to be $28.1 million, and you should have that budget as part of your packet tonight to work through what those line items look like. And in order to proceed, we also need your approval of the advancement of $4.2 million between now and March when the funding is secured. We want to move forward with contracts and begin those early phases of Phase 3. So those are our two requests tonight. I certainly will take any questions, but again, I think to bookend my portion this evening, I just want to, again, on behalf of the Asheboro City School Board of Education, our staff, our students, our families, our entire school district, I want to say personally thank you. Thank you so much for the work you've done with us, the way you've come along beside us, the way you have honored and supported me this a little over a year now as moving into the role of superintendent, and the multiple conversations we've had, the ways that you've pushed and we've worked together. to really try to do something special for the students and families and citizens of Asheboro City Schools. Thank you.
Dr. Woody, thank you for your comments, and thank you for your recognition of this board. And we do it for the citizens and for the students that come through your system. That's what we're all about, and I know that's what you and your staff, all those folks at Asheboro High School. We don't have a budget. I thought you said it was included, but we don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry.
We don't have one.
You scared me for a minute. You said we don't have a budget. I'm thinking, okay. I do have some light items, and I don't know, Will, if we have some things that we could lift up.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry that I
right.
perhaps
Okay.
misspoke on that, but we
right.
we do have some things in front of you so you could see the line items.
Okay. All right. Any questions of Dr. Woody?
No, I'd just like to say that after having 3 sons to go through Asheboro High School, and for them, one of them in particular to have friends that needed handicapped accessible features, and they really, that was a stretch. So it really pleases me to know that this building will be more handicapped accessible for not just the students that need it, but for parents and grandparents that come into the facility there when we are allowed to get back in.
That's right.
Okay.
Dr. Woody, I guess I had a couple questions. I kind of went back and looked at a little bit of the history of as these phases have gone on.
Yeah.
And I know we met in, I think it was February, and had kind of a little bit of a discussion of the budget.
Yes, sir.
And up to that point, we were working, I think Will was working maybe with a number about 15 million. And then it jumped to 28. And I think at that discussion meeting, we talked about, or anything that we can cut back on or do something a little bit different to get that cost down, because that's, $13 million is a pretty good chunk. And I guess, have we done any, what do they call it, value engineering? Is that
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, on the short answer to that, yeah, numbers jumped pretty quickly from, as you mentioned, 13 to 15 to around 21. And then again, in looking at kind of our overall, really the 28 to 30 million number is to do everything, completely outfit, and then trimming back a little bit, but also looking at, are there some additions that we could do at the Performing Arts Center, replacing of some seats, carpet areas, some of the acoustics, looking at the gym. We call it the new gym, but I believe our gym at Asheboro High School was built in the early 80s, maybe, Sandra? We call it our new gym, but really re-outfitting that area, putting a lot of fire retardant materials there. There's just a number of items there, and we can certainly provide that for you. How
we don't have that. All we've got is, the construction is a renovation bid of roughly 22 million, and then you got the architectural fees, the surveys, and all those kind of things. And,
yes,
and
sir.
If we're spending $28 million, we'd kind of like to know a little more detail what we're getting. And I got an idea of what we're getting, but not specifics.
Yeah, and we can certainly provide that. I would just tell you again, with a broad stroke, there's also some costs, construction costs that we're projecting are going to be significantly higher. We've had multiple, I'll look here to our folks from Smith Senate, we've had multiple conversations and negotiating conversations about looking at projections in terms of construction costs. Another key piece, we had planned for, I can't give you a ballpark number, but we had planned for a significantly lesser number for moving trailers and mobile units in, and that's looking at, about 1.5 million, I think right now is where we kind of are with that piece. So numbers have changed in some ways. So that does kind of move that needle from a $22 million piece to around 28. But we certainly can provide really any of those line items for the commissioners if you'd like to see that.
Was it more continue to find more things that needed to be done, or escalation of what was already planned to do? I guess
yes, sir.
Some of both?
Probably both, yeah. And again, I'm speaking in general terms tonight. We certainly have our experts here who could certainly speak to this as well if you want more specificity. But yeah, there's some, we get in and we start looking at asbestos at the high school. We look in the basement and the floor. There's some areas there that we're concerned about in terms of actual cavity areas. If we start busting up that floor and what that might look like in terms of providing additional supports. Yeah, Chairman Fry, I mean, again, I'm speaking in really broad strokes tonight, but it is a combination of looking and making an estimate of what construction costs may look like as we move forward, and then also looking at some of the areas that we know we continue to uncover. Again, the kitchen area at Ashboro High School is an area to outfit that correctly and appropriately is going to cost a little more than what we had initially planned for. And again, I want to make sure I'm not misspeaking. Yeah, Rhonda, do you want to make sure I'm not misspeaking? And it might help to have, yeah, certainly come forward.
Come here, Rhonda. Come up here.
Where people can hear.
So we need our folks that are watching from home to.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'd say one thing we've been doing throughout the process is we have a third-party estimator. So we start that very early with the design, and that's where we saw the creep of costs begin to
Rhonda,
happen.
would you just drop that down while you talk?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. We've had a third-party cost estimator involved from the start with our project, and so we had an increase in that budget. While we work with him, we're working on different things that can help to bring that budget down somewhat, but essentially it is both things. There's a tremendous need for upgrading such an old structure and for making it accessible throughout. And the biggest thing are the infrastructure of the building, mechanical, plumbing, fire alarm, is the biggest extent of the cost. Would you like to jump in? Okay. And we're happy to share with you the estimates, or to show you give you a set of drawings to look over for all the work we're doing, and it is throughout the entire building. And we are certainly trying to be good stewards of your money, but there's just so much that needs to be done to bring it up to the kind of level that you want it to be.
Is it necessary to widen all those halls? I mean, some of that's going to be load bearing. Is that?
Not all of them, but some of them in the first 400 and 500 wing were the real culprits, I guess, and some of the places downstairs. So not every single one needs that. But, we also are upgrading for security because, as you know, the building is sort of like you can come into it from too many directions. So the administrative area really needs to be reworked to help everybody's safety and security. Yeah, we could sit down and share with you a set of drawings and walk you through all of the things that we're trying to do to remedy the situation and make it a better place.
Could you help me just a little bit with the history of when was this original building built and it has been added on to? Is that part of the problem as well during the years?
Yes, so 7 different additions starting in the 40s. 39, 40, yeah, 42, I think. So some of these things have not been touched much at all. Like, as Dr. Woody was saying, the new Performing Arts Center was done in the 90s. The new gym was in the 80s. All of those locker rooms need to be redone throughout the building with the old gym and the new gym and blah, 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 just to make it all accessible. So it just kind of snowballs from there. But there are different systems that they've been at the end of their lives for quite some time, especially mechanical, and it's just kind of been cobbled together to extend to the school as it went along, and at some point it's just all going to have as Ed Keller would say, a catastrophic failure. So we're trying to fix all of those systems so this great school can live for a much longer time.
The original building was constructed when?
70 years ago.
Yeah, 42, 40,
Yeah.
Ed says 49, 1949.
I knew it was around 1950, somewhere right in there. I thought it was around late 40s or early 50s.
Different pieces every 15 years, 20 years.
Post-World War II construction.
Sorry?
Post-World War II construction.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would be more comfortable if we, had a little bit more information. I don't know, Will, if that messes up where we need to go as far as the financing, that kind of thing. But I just don't feel like I've got the information, other than $28 million, I know we've talked a little bit about it, but we haven't addressed this since February, and that's been 7 months. Okay. Advancing that wouldn't slow anything down.
That what? I didn't hear that.
We could go ahead and have the resolution to advance the
Yeah, that's,
4.2,
that's, Will and I talked about that earlier today, I think.
but the budget amendment, we could defer that if we needed.
Correct. Yeah. All right. All right. Any other questions of Dr. Woody? Comments before we bring Will up?
I know Will was coming.
Huh?
I would have waited for Will if I knew he was
Well, I know,
coming up there, yeah.
yeah. But we don't have any other information to consider tonight.
Right, understand. So, thank you for the opportunity to come together and the consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, Will.
What you have as action items tonight is if you're interested in moving the project forward, maybe not with the total budget, but to allow them to go ahead and get started with some of the things that they wanted to do over the next few months prior to issuing the debt. The IRS requires a resolution that just states that that's your intention. If you're issuing tax-exempt debt, they just want a resolution saying you plan to spend money ahead of time and get reimbursed later on, as opposed to not having spent all the money and then saying, oh, we're going to charge back some of those things that we spent, 2 years ago. So the resolutions for the IRS, it doesn't authorize any debt. It just satisfies that requirement. So the action items would be approving the resolution and advancing funds if you so choose.
The resolution basically just has a not to exceed number.
Yeah.
That's,
Without knowing what the scope
it's-
of the project was, just kind of threw that number in there, but that doesn't authorize anything. It's really just for the IRS's benefit that we intend to issue some debt.
so
Had to pick some
this,
number.
this is a procedural thing, just a not to exceed. It doesn't preclude any other changes to these numbers.
Nope. Yep. The intent here is just to state that this board will reimburse some of the preliminary expenses once we issue the debt, which is estimated to be next March.
Would we issue the debt all at one time?
For the final renovation, that would be the plan probably.
Would that, when's the detention center, is that part of that same offering? Is that going to be separate?
Right now, based on the time frame that I recall, that's probably, we won't need to issue the debt until maybe the fall.
Okay. I couldn't remember. We've gone round and round so many times with.
We'll look at that, but I think we had, as you recall, I think we had more money in the contract
Right,
than
about
what
4 million.
the addition piece was. So we've got something to play with through the summer, and then we would probably need to issue the debt in the fall.
Yeah, so what is the status of the addition? Is it completed? I guess we're having the ribbon cutting Thursday, so, and how did that come in relative to budget?
I think you had some little bit of funds left over from that piece of it. $300,000.
Okay.
So we will also, in addition to the resolution, we would need to advance up to 4.2, is that what we're?
That was his estimate, yes, over $4 million, probably between now and next March. I think some of that was for the acquiring the mobile classrooms, some site development, and then the mobile classrooms.
Well, I'll make the motion to approve resolution of the Board of Commissioners for the Randolph County in North Carolina declaring its intention to reimburse said county from the proceeds of one or more tax exempt offerings for certain capital expenditures. Do you want to?
That properly worded? That's the way I think that's the way it's written there.
Yeah. Do we want to include and advance the $4.2 million as?
Do we need to include that, or?
I would view that as kind of related. If you're willing to do the reimbursement resolution, you're approving the advancement.
Okay.
All right.
So that's satisfactory.
Okay. All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion or questions on this matter? Okay. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And the resolution is approved. Keep us apprised of where we are as we're going through this process and how the money's being used, please. All right? Any other comments? Okay. Thank all of you. And things are going big time up at the middle school, so looks good. Thank you. Okay. All right. Our next item of business tonight is a request for replacement vehicles of various departments in the county. And Hal, you're going to present?
During our last budget process with the COVID virus and all the impacts that was having on our budget, we proposed the budget be looked at in phases, which was the first time because we were uncertain as to revenues that the county might get or what impact the COVID would have on our current budget. Our sales tax didn't drop in that final quarter like what we were prepared for it to do. And as a result of that, it gives us the opportunity now to come back and to revisit some of the capital outlay requests that were presented to the commissioners during the budgeting process. That involved primarily the sheriff's office, emergency services, our building inspections, and our planning and zoning. The sheriff has submitted a revised proposal on capital outlay requests for vehicles. The county normally tries to process these capital outlay requests each year on a regular basis, so you're not confronted in one year with a huge backlog of capital outlay vehicle requests. Tonight, the sheriff's representatives are here and they can go into more detail as far as the actual vehicles that they are requesting, because it's been a substantial reduction in what they're proposing to the board now than what we considered and didn't include in the last budget. The sheriff's office is proposing 18 vehicles that you have on your packet there. It shows their original request to the left, and it shows their revised vehicle request on the right side of this form. That totals $555,207 for actual vehicle purchases. There's also vehicle setups for the law enforcement vehicles. That's about $8,000 per vehicle. There are also radio requirements for these vehicles, and that runs at about $3,500 per vehicle for a total of $762,963 that they're requesting for the capital outlay for their vehicles. The emergency services, we postponed 2 ambulances that were being requested in a replacement SUV. We have put that back on the capital outlay request for consideration by the commissioners. This also would include the 3 trucks, replacement vehicles
for the building inspections, and also an SUV replacement for planning and zoning. That would leave a total of $1,434,463 of capital outlay request. And Mr. Chairman, the Sheriff's Office is here to go into a little more detail about their specific request.
Okay, thank you, Hal. I would say, talked to Sheriff Seabolt a couple of times today. He had a previous commitment that would not allow him to attend, but he certainly thanks and asked the Board of Commissioners to consider this request. As you've just heard, most of what we get, the numbers keep going up. These have come down about $432,488 since they were presented back at our budget process. So I do want to recognize the Sheriff and Steve and Brew for working in that. Also, Commissioners, they have presented a 3-year forecast for vehicles that they brought tonight prior to the meeting, which was requested. So, Steve, we'll ask you to tell us what we're going to do with these vehicles.
Okay. So our original request was for 27 vehicles. That replaces roughly 11% of our fleet, which is where we try to stay every year. That keeps us afloat. We've cut it in roughly in half, not quite in half, down to about 7.5%. That keeps us alive, so that next year we're not coming to you asking for 40 vehicles or 45 vehicles or anything like that. This keeps us to where we can hopefully get back to that 11% replacement. We're asking for what we consider the bare minimum. Obviously, patrol vehicles are always an issue. We asking for 8 of those. Unmarked vehicles, I think it's written on your thing, jail transportation, that's certainly an issue. That's mainly statewide transportation. They put a lot of miles on cars really quick. Just as an example, one of the officers is driving a 2018 model. He's got almost 100,000 miles on it already, just driving across the state, driving inmates across the state. So they put a lot of miles on vehicles very quickly. The SUVs are for patrol, and then a couple of vice vehicles, and then our K-9 vehicles.
Are the Tahoes for the K-9s?
They are. And the reason we have Tahoes is it's a comfort and convenience thing. It's more comfortable for the dog, it's more comfortable for the handler. And if you look at what K-9 equipment is available to fit vehicles, mainly what they manufacture is what most agencies use, and that's the Tahoe. When you start looking at the Durango, a Charger, you have to start kind of getting generic stuff and making it fit. And that doesn't always fare well for the dog or the handler. That, we end up having to do some maneuvering there. So the majority of the equipment that's available is for Tahoes. That's why we're recommending the Tahoes for the K-9s.
Y'all had the K-9, one of them up in Archdale for a stolen vehicle or something a couple weeks ago, didn't you?
Yes, they've gotten quite a bit of use lately. So, and I will point out that these K-9s, part of the purpose in the Tahoe, the bigger vehicle, is we're looking at trying to get some more dogs that are specific to certain, not necessarily apprehension, but like a bloodhound that's just for tracking, where you can use it to track Alzheimer's patients or missing kids or something, where you don't have to worry about the dog being aggressive when it comes on it. The option is you either add another handler that just specifically does that dog. That's another vehicle, that's another cage, that's another school. Whereas now we have these handlers, we can put a dual kennel in the back of a Tahoe where you could actually put 2 dogs in. So they could have a dog that's trained in apprehension and a bloodhound that's trained. 2 dogs, 1 handler, 1 vehicle is another reason for the Tahoes there. Vice, narcotics, like I said, their vehicles they haven't gotten vehicles in several years. They're at the point that they're their vehicles are starting. You may remember we had to request earlier in the year an emergency where we had one vehicle and we had to buy a pickup truck. So we're at that point. Their vehicles, several of their vehicles are well over 100,000 miles there as well.
How about delivery, Steve?
Dodge is opening, they haven't opened up the ordering for the Chargers yet. I understand that's opening at the end of this week. Dodge builds them in the order that the order is placed. So the quicker you place the order, the quicker you're likely to get your vehicles. They have already opened up for Durangos. I may still go with Durangos, but we're having to explore some other options because Dodge is so far behind. They're saying the order earliest, even if you order now, earliest they can build them is the first week of February. And then they build them in the order they're received. So to try not to push it into the next budget year, because that's not doing us any good, you know, we're open to exploring. The Ford is one thing we're looking at, those Ford SUVs, good feedback on those. They're very comparable in price, if not actually just a little bit less, depending on.
Good thing Phil Kemp's not still on the board.
I was just thinking.
And I have phased out a large number of vehicles this year as well, so, if I can find it.
Is that for patrol units or?
It's a combination of, everything. Most of them have come off patrol, but they were cycled through patrol, so they were on patrol at one point, probably got passed to another division such as school resource, jail, the courthouse, something like that. And then they've just reached their end of life, so we've had to,
Are the Durangos unmarked?
they are. And then the cost that goes with it, of course, that's your emergency equipment, the wiring that goes with it. The emergency equipment is a lot like stuff you tend to buy at home that has these hidden costs with it. For example, the prisoner partitions, you can buy the partition, but if you want the hardware bag to put the partition together, that's a separate cost that you have to add on. The blue lights, you can buy the blue lights, but if you want the brackets to be able to mount them to the car, that's a separate cost. So when you start adding those in, that's where it adds up to the roughly $8,000 per car.
Right. Other questions?
I got a few.
Go right ahead.
You're asking for 18, and I appreciate the fact you've gone from 27 to 18, believe me. So the folks out in the audience even know, and I'm asking myself here, the 18 you're talking about, these are replacement vehicles, meaning there's 18 vehicles that are either not repairable to a point to be able to use, or they're just so used and worn you just don't feel like they're functioning. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, and we've gotten rid of, and I have to find it. I can tell you exactly what we've gotten rid of. I've already sent a number of vehicles to auction this year.
Well, that was another question. I'm glad you brought that up. What do you do with these vehicles that you're replacing? I guess that's
the county, and Will may be able to speak to this a little better. The county has a contract with Ray's Southern Auto Auction. So they come and get the vehicles and then auction them for us, and we get a check from them for the vehicles.
But you can also use those possibly for other departments?
We have given some, I know, to emergency services in the past, but when I sell a vehicle, it's not something I would give to any other department that I could feel comfortable saying, this vehicle won't leave you stranded on the side of the road. So, just for an example, the lowest mile car I got rid of was 116,000 miles, and that was a 2008 model. So we kept that well over 10 years or better. Got rid of the 2014 was probably the newest car that I've actually got rid of. And I got rid of some vehicles with 184,000 miles on them. So
how much?
184,000 was the highest.
You start getting Tahoes and you can put some miles on those.
Yes.
Well, one thing about it, and we all know this, Randolph's a big county.
Big county.
You go ahead and drive it a little bit, and you'll see how many miles you put on it.
And our patrol officers average about 200 miles a shift. And so you figure working a weekend, that's 600 miles in a weekend, easy. And if it's a busy night, you may have more than that.
Yeah, I understand that. And I'm not being critical, I'm just asking these questions. I think a lot of people look at this and you're wanting 18 vehicles, and immediately they go to, well, they're buying 18 more vehicles. Yeah, but you're still getting rid of other vehicles.
Correct.
I think the people need to understand that there is some amount of revenue coming back in, or at least usage and
Right.
and that type of thing of these vehicles, and not just adding a bunch of vehicles on.
Right. And you know, with the number of miles we drive, obviously accidents are going to happen, whether it's deer, whatever the case. And, you know, some of those vehicles, it's just not, when you start getting up in the 100,000 mile range, it's not worth putting $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in to repair it. So we weigh that as well when we decide, is it time to scrap a vehicle or not? And in addition to what they sell, I've got 3 or 4 vehicles sitting at our fleet maintenance building that we would normally sell, but we're using strictly for parts to try to keep other cars running.
Stripping some of that off.
Right.
At least that can help. Well, I appreciate, you know, from me to you, I appreciate the fact you can find a way to bring them down from 27 to 18.
Thank you.
Really do, Drew, and I know you guys have worked at it as far as that's concerned.
In the mid-20s, I think, Hal or Will did a little announcement. The mid-20s has been a pretty routine or pretty consistent number of vehicles over the years. And
Right.
I think I'm working with my 5th sheriff right now. And Sheriff Hurley was doing it for a long time, Maynard, but that's pretty, this is not, well, the 18 is probably one of our lower numbers. And I think that is the attention for the 2 K-9 cars and the unmarked vehicles. I know you've had a big emphasis on vice and narcotics in the county too. So,
Right. And like I said, the 18 will keep us alive and keep us afloat so that we're not having to present you next year with a capital outlay request for 40 vehicles to catch back up.
Just out of curiosity, how many dogs do you have now? I don't.
7. I think it's 7, and looking at purchasing a few more. in the
So you
future.
got to have a handler for each, and they got to have transportation. I find that interesting. You could do 2 in one
Yeah.
vehicle.
Right. You can get, for the Tahoes, and it's made specifically for the Tahoes, you can get a dual kennel for the back that you can actually put 2 dogs in, and they have room to move around.
I would assume there'd be several different circumstances that would require that.
Right. You know, you can't use a dog, even though it's trained in tracking, if it's an apprehension dog, when it tracks, it doesn't know the difference between a Alzheimer's patient and a felony suspect armed with a gun. It just knows it's tracking this person, and its nature is to bite at the end. And of course, you wouldn't want to use that with a missing child or something like that. A bloodhound is going to lick you when it finds you. So that's the different aspect. And you can actually, with a dual handler, you could put 1 dog or 2 dogs with 1 handler. They could basically pull whichever dog is appropriate at that time. And once you turn a car into a K-9 car, you're never going to be able to use that car for anything else other than a K-9 car. You can't convert it back to a transport car or anything like that.
The handlers, the dog lives with them, don't they?
Yes.
Even the bloodhounds?
Yes.
All right. Good discussion. Any more?
It is.
I did learn something. I didn't know dogs don't prefer Dodges. They prefer Tahoes.
Yeah, they like Tahoes better.
They don't know the difference, do they?
My dog will ride anything.
Yeah. Bill Kemp, as y'all know, he was a Dodge dealer here for a long time. He was big on Dodges. Bill was, we miss him. All right, other questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the addition of vehicle purchase to the current 2021 budget, which include appropriation of fund balance in the amount of $1,434,000. No, that's the, I need to, yeah, that's right. $1,434,463. $762,963 for the sheriff. Emergency services, $555,000. Building inspections, $90,000. Planning and zoning, $26,500.
And I do note, do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. The ambulances, sort of the same thing. These are replacements. These don't have anything to do anticipating any issue at the hospital. I mean, these are replacement or ambulances that we need. Same reason these vehicles get miles and get used, and we put it off, but our revenues are doing better or no worse than we expected, and we'll actually build fund balance by more than what this allocation is.
And we did not spend anything at all.
At budget time.
At budget time,
Good
so
point.
this is.
We didn't spend make any capital expenditures during the budget, so, and this was.
I might add that, that's one of the reasons I went along with that, at that time. Because I felt like if we could come back,
We didn't know.
we didn't know. And
Now we
I
do
think it
know a
was
little more.
appropriate at that time we do that and have this comeback.
Well,
I
and
think
we
it's appropriate thing.
we saved $432,000 by waiting.
Now, let me ask, just as curiosity, now, are these bidded values now? Is this what you're really anticipating will occur, or what?
It shouldn't change much. These are on state contract for the current year. I believe it'll run through at least October, if not December. Some dealerships are a little bit different, but there shouldn't be much difference in the cost. These are based on what the current state contract
Pretty
was.
good estimate at this point in time.
Yes, sir.
Will these be 20s or 21s?
Hopefully 21s.
Because the dates
Yes.
pretty much around model change time. So.
Yeah.
So if we do this now, I'm thinking if we do this now, it should be cheaper than,
And he gets in line.
yeah.
Yeah.
When do you anticipate, this might not be a fair question, but when do you anticipate being able to, once you get this in and put your orders in, how quickly would some of this turn?
We're at the mercy of the dealership on that, really. Like I said, I put a call into Ford today just to see if there were some other options and explore, and I didn't receive a call back yet. I do know the Dodge Chargers come quicker than the Durangos. Like I said, Ford's already said the earliest they'll build the 2021 Durangos is the first week of February, because they're still trying, from where they shut down because of COVID, they're still trying to fulfill the 2020 orders. But they will accept, they have started accepting, so now you just fall in line wherever you place that order.
You're at the mercy of everybody else.
Right.
I was going to ask, Donovan, what's the lead time on your ambulances?
Normally we order in August and have it by December, January.
So you're thinking December, January, maybe a little. So you're. Didn't want to leave you out of the fun. Okay.
I would say the sheriff's folks got questions about what do they do with the ones they replace. I don't know if all of you saw, one of our old ambulances was converted into a bookmobile. Really looks great, too. It's a great job, painted, nice, very nice. So we use it, we use everything like that we can, and we appreciate our departments that keep that in mind as well. Other comments, questions? All right, those in favor will say aye. Aye. And opposed, no, and it's approved. Thank all of you for your participation. Okay, next item is Economic Development Annual Report. Kevin, you're up. See you, Mr. Cheek.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening, and I did place a hard copy of our annual report. I think at most of your desks, we have gone to mostly doing this online now, although we do still have some copies printed. Obviously, I'm not going to go through and just read that, but there's a few highlights that I will make and wanted you to be aware of that. First of all, I just want to thank the members that are present here that are members of our board. So Chairman Fry is a member of our EDC board, as is County Manager Johnson, and actually Dr. Woody has since left the building, but he is one of our newest members of the board as well. So just wanted to acknowledge those that are currently sitting on our board that are here this evening. Also want to just express our appreciation for the support that the county commissioners provide to us on an annual basis. We are a public-private partnership. We do have private funds coming in, but the lion's share of our funding comes from Randolph County government, and we don't take that for granted. We appreciate the support that you provide to us, and we know that we couldn't be doing the job that we do without the support of Randolph County, so I do want to thank you for that. Also want to just mention that normally we would be here in probably January, February, and so our schedule is off a little bit. Typically what would happen is we would do our annual report with our local governments based on the calendar year, and then we would have our annual meeting and our annual report based upon our fiscal year, which is the same as the county's fiscal year, June 1 to July 30. And so it just kind of made sense this past year that we put everything on the same calendar. And so therefore, what you see in this annual report is really an 18-month report rather than a 12-month report. And we'll be back on that normal 12-month schedule coming this time next year. I do want to make a reference to a few points that you see in the annual report, just a few highlights and review of the stats that we had. Over the past 18 months, we had 82 new jobs committed with an annual new payroll of just over or just under $2.1 million. So that's an annual new revenue in terms of workers coming in of around $2.1 million. So that's a lot of purchasing power, and that's great news for Randolph County. We had a little over $18 million committed in new investment over the course of this report, 18 months. The largest projects were 90,000 square foot expansion to custom extrusion here in Asheboro. I do want to highlight that one in particular because they were 16,000 square feet, and then all of a sudden they go to they added 90, right? So that's a very significant expansion here in Asheboro. Essentially what's happened there is they've been acquired by another company, and that company is continuing to grow through acquisition. They've really identified the Asheboro location as their premier southeast location for their extrusion processes. So we're really excited about that growth and the jobs and investment that are continuing to come in terms of new equipment and the jobs related. So that's a great news for Randolph County and Asheboro. We also had 110,000 square foot expansion to the Ream facility, which is in Randleman. And so that's another very large expansion. And you all are well aware, we sold 11.5 acres of the West Randleman Business Park in order to facilitate that expansion. The good news that I see about that, and they didn't project anything specific, but they bought much more than is needed for just this expansion. And they've already gone through and done a rough grade on that as well. So that additional land out there will facilitate potential future expansions. And so we hope to see Ream in that facility and continuing to grow for many, many years to come. We have been active over many years with building reuse grants. This was no exception over these last reports. $705,000 in building reuse grants were secured with EDC assistance. Those were in Archdale, Asheboro, and Thomasville. So we saw those across the county as well. We had about 100 project inquiries with 56 submittals, and the majority of requests are for buildings. So about 60% of all of those requests are for buildings. If you take out the few requests that had it can be in either a building or a site. We really go up to about 66%. So about 2/3 of all of our requests were specifically for buildings, and we have a need for buildings. And we've talked about that, and we're going to continue to talk about that as well. I would just give you an example. We have several buildings that are available, but we had a call last week that indicates that one of those is now under contract, which is great news. The potential of another company coming to Randolph County, but it also continues to put a challenge in terms of how do we meet the needs and the requests that are coming in for those buildings. I would say that if you're just looking at these statistics, we really had a fairly normal year, but as we all know, this past year has been anything but normal. So we can't be here tonight without mentioning at least some of the challenges of, and even some opportunities of COVID-19 over the past year. We know that this pandemic resulted in both disruption and opportunities for our manufacturers, and also resulted in enhanced existing industry services by the EDC. Over the course of the past 6 months or so, we connected with every one of our members individually, and some of those on more than one occasion, just reaching out proactively to find out what their needs are and how we can help support them in their operations. We had, so reactive and proactive. As you might imagine, when March rolled around and there started even to be talk about what the governor was going to do in terms of possibly shutting down non-essential businesses, before we ever got to any specific action, the phones started ringing off the hook. So we had lots of phone calls, lots of emails, lots of text messages during the day, during the evening hours, on the weekends, folks that were just uncertain about what to do and how to proceed. So we were able to provide a lot of support, and then it went from essential business to everything from PPP to now how do we get our employees back once we've laid them off when we were shut down, either voluntarily or by governor's mandate. So a lot of uncertainty since March, and a lot of opportunity then for us to provide services and support for our companies. We're also, as I said, proactive. We received lots of information, so we tried to serve as a little bit of a clearinghouse, and some of our companies have expressed a tremendous thanks to us for the information that we were continuing to provide. As soon as we received good, solid information about programs and opportunities, governor's announcements, we were sending that immediately out to our existing industry base, and they were very appreciative of that information. We also even hosted a PPP webinar to help folks understand what it was going to look like to get forgiveness for the loans that they received. And even through that process, the rules were changing. So we were doing everything we could to provide that support for them. Some businesses in Randolph County were able to pivot, and there's a whole page in the annual report. I'll not go through the details of that, but just showing some of the opportunities that some of our businesses had. Some businesses, such as Trotter's Sewing Company and AEC Narrow Fabrics, saw their business enhanced. So there were a lot more orders coming in for the types of things that they were doing on a daily basis that was really special in boosting their support and their business. Then we saw other businesses that were taking advantage of new opportunities, and I think Bosong Medical, Bosong Hosiery Mills is probably the best example that I can come up with of a company that was doing something, and then when this came about, they pivoted and did something totally different and had a lot of success in their business making masks. I don't know how many they sold, but there were lines for weeks around the backside of their building as people were buying those in ones and twos. And so that was great opportunity for businesses. However, we understand that there were a lot of businesses that didn't see that bump. There were a lot of businesses that were challenged during this. As I mentioned, some businesses shut down specifically because they were forced to by the governor's order. Some businesses chose to shut down for a period of time because they believed that was what was best for their business and what was best for their employees. Some businesses that stayed open then, after a month or a month and a half, began to see a dip in orders or a challenge with supply chain, getting materials to their facilities. And so there's just all manner of challenges As far as I know, I've not learned of any manufacturing businesses that were forced to permanently shut down as a result of this. So as far as I know, everybody's back up and running at some level of capacity, although there still are some challenges for many of these employers getting back up to their normal operations. So opportunities and challenges through COVID-19. I will mention also that over the past year, not only were there challenges and changes in the local economy, but we also saw some significant changes in our organization as well. We saw some restructuring. Our board made some changes in how our organization looks and what we focus on, and we really saw a renewed focus on these core goals of economic development: business retention and expansion, business attraction, marketing, product development, and we had a lot of direct impacts of that. So the board saw fit to give me the opportunity to step into the lead role in the organization just over a year ago. Continuing to focus on business retention and expansion, I think that was a great message for our existing companies, because we all recognize that while we love to see the new announcements coming in and new business opportunities and new jobs and new investment and diversification of the economy and how important that is, the majority of new investment and new job creation in any community in any given year, including Randolph County, comes from those businesses that are already here and operating. And so that was a great message. Hey, we're still here, we're behind you. Just as an example, we also have some new programs going. We established the Randolph Industrial Council, which we started off in quarterly meetings, and we kind of had to drop off of that. We actually are doing another virtual meeting later this month, but this is an opportunity for our manufacturers to get together in a room over breakfast. Someday we'll get back to the bacon and eggs and meeting, but to get together over breakfast, meet personally with folks that are maybe even in the same industrial park that they've never met before, understand opportunities to do business together, and also hear a speaker on a topic that's relevant to manufacturing. So some of those things that we're doing. We also saw a new staff member come in. Just under a year ago, last October, we hired Crystal Geddes as our business recruitment director. She has hit the ground running. Obviously, those efforts have been a little stymied as well due to COVID. Some of the trips and trade shows and things that were on the schedule that were planned couldn't happen because they were canceled and travel became a challenge. I will say that we did take some of those dollars that were allocated towards travel and that type of marketing and redirected those to a marketing initiative. And we've got on board now a marketing firm out of Greensboro that's doing some good work for us in terms of messaging, photography, and putting together some marketing collateral for us so that we can take what we have up a notch, make sure that we've got professional, high-quality product when we're out marketing Randolph County. One of the pictures you'll see in the report also, we haven't heard probably publicly a lot about the Greensboro-Randolph megasite recently, but rest assured that there continues to be lots of conversations and lots of work behind the scenes, something that was publicly done several months ago when Tesla was talking about a new facility. We hired an airplane to fly over their Fremont, California facility and to let them know that we were welcoming them to consider Randolph County and the Greensboro-Randolph megasite. You may have heard that Tesla has cited its next manufacturing facility in Austin, Texas area. That doesn't mean that sometime down the road they won't still be looking for an East Coast operation if we haven't identified another operation to take place in that site between now and then. So continuing to market that. Moving forward, we have a new strategic action plan that's been adopted by the Board of Commissioners, by the EDC Board, that's going to really inform our direction in the current fiscal year. Again, a greater focus on that business retention and expansion, and a greater focus on specifically business attraction and product development. So in our world, product development, as you well know, is buildings and sites. And so we do have some things that are underway, trying to get sites a little bit higher in terms of readiness, and we'd love to see some building activity and hopefully hearing some things that may come to fruition over the course of the next 12 months. So the past 18 months ultimately have been a whirlwind, but we're really more committed than ever to the success of Randolph County, our communities, and our businesses, and we have a lot to thank Randolph County Board of Commissioners for helping us to make that happen. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I know there's a lot of information, tried not to take too much time to do that, but if you have any questions about anything specifically that I didn't cover, or any details that you'd like on any of what we did cover, I'd be happy to take time to answer that.
Questions?
Just out of curiosity, the workforce availability, I don't, maybe I missed a little bit of that. Where do you see the workforce availability now and going forward?
So the unemployment rate, I think the last number for Randolph County was a little over 8% still. So there are folks that are available to go to work, but there's still some uncertainty in that workforce piece. So we still have folks that are concerned about going back to the workplace and potentially being exposed if they're at high risk, or if they've got folks in the home that are at high risk with COVID. So we still have that concern. We still had, up until fairly recently, enhanced unemployment benefits, and there were folks that were taking advantage of that, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but that was a boost for people that got laid off from their jobs. Because these facilities are still not back at the level of employment where they once were. There are workers that are out there. It's a matter of trying to connect the workers with the jobs that have that skill set. So I had a call this morning from an employee of one of our manufacturing facilities who was in the front office, who still has not been able to go back to work, and so she's now looking for opportunities. So I think there's room still over the next few months to absorb workforce back into these facilities. If we start getting back to that 3.5% where we were pre-COVID, that continues to create some challenges. And so the opportunities there are, North Carolina is one of the few states where we still are seeing population growth, not just by new births in the state, but by people moving into the state. So that's good news. And then we also have our education partners, the Randolph County School System, Ashboro City Schools, Randolph Community College, or a charter school, working hard with their CTE programs, with apprenticeship programs. So doing everything we can. We've got, in rough numbers, about 1,000 graduates of high school coming out of Randolph County every year. And we have opportunity, if we can make the right connections for some of those young people who maybe the four-year university isn't in their future for whatever reason. We've got opportunity to put them to work and ultimately to get a great education on the job. Many of our companies actually will pay for an associate's degree or a four-year degree once they can get into the workforce. So I think that really tapping into that is one of the best opportunities that we have here in the county.
It appears the extra stimulus money, they went and spent it. I think that's one of the things that sort of propped up some of our numbers.
Right. So things aren't as good as they could be, but they're certainly not as bad as they could be either.
No. A lot of areas have a higher unemployment than we do.
That's right.
But you're still seeing industries calling and asking about?
Yes, and in fact, it's been a little bit surprising to me this year to date, our level of inquiries is actually higher now than we were year to date last year. So we did see a little bit of a lull, but we are still definitely seeing activity. And in fact, over the last 3 or 4 months, we've had more visits in the community, more really serious inquiries than we've had probably in the last couple of years. So Now, we also have some expansion activity that we were really working hard and some things that have been put on hold for about 6 months until we get through that. But I've been actually quite encouraged with the level of activity that we've had even over the past 8 or 9 months.
I heard from one of my morning exercise buddies in High Point of some folks that's looking in Ashboro. One of their best customers, so.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think we've got a lot of opportunity ahead. We certainly have challenges, but we got a lot of opportunity ahead.
Well, I guess my concern was, you know, the availability of people first place, but to know that the companies are actually still out there looking, and you do have availability of bodies to work with, too.
Yeah, we do.
That's definitely with what we've gone through the last few months.
Yeah.
Encouraging.
And it's amazing, you look at your list, how many of our companies reacted quickly and started producing various PPE products.
And that really allowed many employees to stay on the job.
Sure.
So, you know, in addition to the PPP funding, which many of our employers took advantage of and kept more employees on the production floor maybe than were necessary based on their production levels. But yes, absolutely. We had a number of folks that were able to continue to work because the leadership took advantage of opportunities and in some cases created opportunities.
But don't you think some of that's the fact we have that textile base?
Yeah, well, the mills where I worked 34 years, they turned those knitting machines and started making masks out of them.
That's right. That's right. So either they were knitting
selling-
masks, or they were sewing masks, or
Yep.
sewing gowns, or making the elastic for the bands on the masks, and so
Kind of a natural fit for what our populace is.
absolutely, absolutely.
At one time, being in textiles was to our advantage. Today,
right.
I mean,
That's right.
see that coming back. All right, other comments? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Best to you and Crystal, thank you. Okay, central permitting ordinance. David?
Good evening, Commissioners. Michael, Rowland, and I are going to present this ordinance. The central permitting ordinance was written and adopted in 1991. That's 29 years ago. To give you some perspective, I was being chased around Fort Sill by a drill sergeant at that time. And I know our own Hal Johnson had spent some time out at Fort Sill as well. A couple years ago, Hal had put together this advisory committee for central permitting to make sure and to ensure all the departments are communicating, because so many things have changed over the years with laws, regulations, technology, and to make sure we're communicating with each department. So if I change something in building inspections, it doesn't mess up zoning or environmental health or something like that. So basically, Hal comprised this committee of representatives from the inspections department, planning and zoning, IT, tax department, health department, and the fire marshal's office. We all have ties directly related to central permitting, and in that way this committee can throw out ideas. You have them coming in from everywhere where no one person kind of runs it. It's kind of a group thing, which makes it a lot better. The purpose of the ordinance before was to ensure that the public could have the most efficient way of obtaining permits, and central permitting had provided that opportunity for them. So over the past 2 years, we've been kind of creating a new ordinance, and we've rewritten that to kind of summarize everything and lay out a little better procedure for central permitting, and not put so many factors in there to where if anything changes, we would have to come back before the commissioners to get change approval, like if they change a general statute or something like that. we wouldn't have to come back to you guys for approval on that.
David, when we had that committee, and I know I saw some reference to it, but did we have representation from outlying around the county? Are they all centrally located, or who was on? I know, builders in Archdale, they used to go there locally and get their permits, but now we don't. But what kind of input did we get in that process? No, now. He's talking about the committee.
Well, the committee gets the input from their interactions with the developer.
Yeah, the contractors, relay to us the changes they want to see, and then we bring it to the committee to make sure we're not affecting another department, if we make a change. Especially with the getting this stuff out online to where they can apply for permits and things online. We had to work closely with the tax department because we gather data that they need in doing their assessments, health department, zoning. All of these departments come together and try to create a way to provide the service in the most efficient way that we can. And, we get input from contractors or citizens, whenever they go to obtain permits. If they have any type of issues, we kind of keep records of that and bring it before the committee to see if we can find a way to make things easier.
And I might not just be, but on under Article A, it has to do with our refund policy.
Yes, sir.
And it says no refunds are allowed once substantial work has commenced, and it defines substantial work or a vested right. What's a vested right?
A vested right would be if they got permits and they've started construction, and say they've stopped right in the middle of construction, but we've already performed, a dozen inspections out there, we wouldn't necessarily do a refund on that. If the permit expired, we would, whenever they got their stuff back together, we would reopen the permit, wouldn't charge them another permit fee. But now if they come into us and they never start the project, we would offer a refund because we really don't have no vested right.
So a vested right is substantial work.
Right.
The other thing, it says permit fees would be, if it qualifies, would be refunded less an administrative fee.
Right.
Is that an exact amount?
Well, it's I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but it would never exceed $75 on residential or $150 on commercial. Commercial's higher because we got, it may take us a week to review drawings and gather data. In a house or something like that, we would have limited time involved in it. But they do have to go through the process of setting up the permits, doing reviews. So less the administrative fee, we feel would be fair.
So administrative fee doesn't have an exact amount?
It's 25%.
It's on the next page.
Oh, okay, I see it.
Yeah.
All right.
But it would not exceed $75.
5 or 150.
75 or the 100, I see.
Yeah.
150.
Okay. All right. Questions? All right.
Pretty straightforward.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we repeal the current central permitting ordinance and adopt the new central permitting ordinance.
Thank you. Have a second to the motion. Have a second. David, further discussion? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And it's adopted. Thank you for your work. Human Resources. Jill?
Good evening, Chairman Fry and members of the board. Thank you for those prayers tonight. We employees always appreciate that. We appreciate our volunteers, so we do all have to work together. But I'm coming to you all tonight about adding a classification title to our classification plan. You all approve our classification plan. And so with that, throughout the year, we might have job titles that need to be changed or added. And we try to wait and do that in July, but we needed to bring another one to you. So tonight, we're going ahead and bringing this one to you as well. So as this says, public health has 4 public health educators, and they have proven invaluable during COVID-19, answering questions from the public, creating, information, different types of information for the public, also answering questions when people call into the Emergency Operations Center. But what COVID-19 has shown is that there is a need for additional outreach to the public, especially what might call those priority populations, some that may not get the type of health care that they need, may not reach out for the services they need, may not have the access they need. But what this position would do, the education outreach coordinator would be able to provide that additional outreach and support for those services for the people that are probably, again, it's called priority, but people that may not be able to get the services they need as much. And the health department has had a recent retirement, so they do not need additional funding for this position, but they do need this position title, and it's not in our classification plan. The public health educators all have bachelor's degrees. That's required from the state. This position would not. It's going to be a more of an assistant type position requiring an associate's degree, and so does not need the same level of education as the public health educator. But if you all would approve adding this job title to the classification plan at grade 112, we would appreciate it.
That position would be under the health department?
Yes, it would be under the health department.
I guess that would be an ongoing position, not related to COVID-19.
It would be, with the position, the individual that retired, they did some restructuring in their, I guess you call accounting, finance, business area. So they just shifted the funds to work more with public health education. And yes, it would be ongoing. Mm-hmm.
I do think, from what I've seen, serving on the Board of Public Health, that that COVID has shown a light on the need to educate our underserved populations about different services. And so I think this position would be valuable. I like seeing changes and adaptations based on need and flexibility, being willing to change, and I think there'll be a lot of that throughout our government services, throughout our community, throughout our churches. I think there will be a lot of things that will, that will change.
Right.
So I think I applaud the health department for recognizing that this position would be beneficial. I'm glad to see that the money's already there. So if nobody else has any questions, I'll be glad to make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Question, don't we have somebody sort of doing this now? A little bit? I mean.
Well, the public health educators themselves they're creating a lot of the programs. And I don't know, you all have probably seen some of their videos that they've put out about hand washing and different things. I know I passed that along myself to my family. Look, we're doing it wrong. So they're doing a lot of that, but this would provide, like what Hope was saying, that go more into the community even more and focus on especially some of the high-risk areas. But yes, sir, they are doing a level of that now, but it would increase that.
My question, I guess, better.
Okay.
We're going to fill this position right away.
Yes, yes.
That's probably the better question.
Yes.
Okay.
But this position title will better fit yes.
Okay.
We've already got someone that would be able to step into that role.
All right. Other questions? Those in favor? You say no? No. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And it's approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Donovan?
Almost last but not least. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the capital adoption earlier for the vehicles. We appreciate that. We'll get on that tomorrow. My request tonight is we received notification from Wake Forest Baptist. That's who we normally contract, Randolph County to Wake Forest for the medical director. We received notification from them. They've, I guess, making a lot of changes on their end on August 14th that they wanted to, they wish to terminate the contract between the county and Wake Forest to provide the medical director and preferred that we go direct with the medical director. So the request tonight is really just cleaning up the mechanism and changing the mechanism and method of how we contract that. You should have in your packet a copy of a proposed contract for Dr. Jason Stapara, who is our current medical director, and we wish for him to continue as the medical director. Since 2013, he's been our medical director through a contractual agreement, as I said, with Wake Forest, and we want to change that now. He will essentially become a part-time employee, but still contracted with, as the contract you see there. The money's already allocated in my budget, so there's no change in that. And as I said, he desires to continue as the medical director. And he can, in order to continue these services, which are required by the state, I'm here to ask the board to consider adding a medical director position. With this request, and Jill's still sitting behind me, the dentist classification plan could be changed to a medical classification plan. The medical director position and classification would be added to the medical classification plan at grade 200. Given the complexity of the position of medical director and the unusual hours that it requires, this employment relationship, as I mentioned already, can be best governed by a contractual agreement. The agreement sets forth both the terms and conditions of employment and the methods of termination. So the action that I'm requesting tonight is really three. To add the medical director position, which we already have a job description and the contract. Request that the dentist classification be changed to a medical classification plan in order that the medical director classification can be added to the classification under grade 200. And finally, request that you approve the contract for Dr. Stapara and authorize county manager to sign.
Donovan, he's working for us part-time.
He'll essentially be a part-time employee, but a set rate.
Yep.
And
will he continue to work for Wake Forest?
yeah, his normal duties and positions won't change.
We just
We'll
won't
still
have, we won't have the agreement between the two of us. between
Correct.
The county and the.
It'll be
Baptist.
direct with, yeah, it'll be direct.
He will continue to work them on some part-time basis or some.
Yes, well, he works for them full-time and us part-time. He's typically here every Monday, all day, and then for in-services a couple of times a month, we do different things. So, and the hours are set forth in the contract of what he has to provide in the county and remotely.
He feels a required need for us.
Very much so.
Yes.
We have to have him to operate emergency medical services and 911, essentially, for medical calls. We will still have access to the EMS fellows, the emergency physicians that are taking the EMS fellowship. We'll have a separate memorandum of agreement between Randolph County and the school. So we'll still get the fellows. In fact, we have one now that started in July, and he'll be here through the end of June. So he comes along every week free of charge, rides the ambulance some, helps teach in services some. So we essentially get 2 doctors, sometimes 3, through that agreement at no cost.
Okay, questions? We don't want him to get away.
No.
He's a great guy.
Commissioner Haywood mentioned on our call this morning, he was the Fox 8 hero for the COVID-19 recognition this morning.
Hero segment. And back in 2016, he was the North Carolina Doctor of the Year.
Yep.
So, so he does excellent work here, and
Sure does.
I'm thrilled that he would like to remain here in that capacity.
But he works enough to qualify for our benefits.
He'll work, yeah, so part-time positions up to 1,000 hours, there's no benefits, up to 1,500 hours, we pay into their retirement, but that'll be included into what's allocated into my budget, so it's,
All right,
is that right?
Hope, you ready to make?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the contract for Dr. Jason Stepira and authorize the county manager to sign it. Do you want me to go ahead and do these others as well?
Yes, let's just,
All right, I also make a motion to approve updating the dentist classification plan to the medical classification plan. And then I make the motion to approve the addition of medical director to the medical classification plan.
Mr. Attorney, we're doing, to combine all those, because it's all related to the same issues. All right, have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Making these shifts, but this is good. Any other questions or discussion?
I'm just impressed that Donovan's making a update to the dentist classification. I didn't know he was qualified.
I did not miss that.
You're making updating to the dentist classification. I didn't know that you were, had such authority to do that. I'm impressed.
I remember when Dr. Miller was our dentist.
Yeah.
Great guy. All right.
If you haven't met the public health dentist, you really need to,
We
because
have.
she is a awesome lady.
Yes.
Dr. Mustafa, I believe her name.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those no, and it's all approved. Thank you all very much. Thanks for your patience tonight as well. Okay, Hal, do you have anything tonight? I got two things. One is, we had our COG meeting the other day. We have 3 Randolph County senior adult sites that are designated centers of excellence. That's Archdale, Liberty, and Ashboro. As a result, they each get a $10,515 grant. These are state funds, not the federal aging dollars that we get. And Randleman is a center of merit, and they get a $7,010 grant. So this is something that we do once a year, and I just making y'all aware of that. It's a good thing, good designation for those centers that we have here. I think there's 19 in our 12-county area, so we get 3 of them in one county, so that speaks well of Randolph. And also, State President Kevin Austin, his presidential initiative this year was Pathways, and it had to do with child advocacy and
Engaging
Mr. Haywood
disengaged youth.
served on that committee, and there's a final report. I don't know if y'all seen that, but it's very detailed, and hope all your cohorts speak well of you, so thank you for representing us in that process, and I just encourage y'all to get a copy of it. I think since we've been doing these initiatives, the one Fred McClure had on opioid addiction a few years back, this is probably the best one we've done. And I need it, too often goes overlooked, but.
It's very beneficial.
Just make y'all aware of that, and it is available, maybe Hal could copy it, but, great report, and, I don't know if President Smith intends to carry forward with this, sometimes they do, but I haven't heard that yet, but just make y'all aware of that. Any other business to come before this board tonight? All right. You have anything else? Yeah. So we will not adjourn, and do I have a motion on the closed session?
I don't have the thing. I can do it from.
Wait a minute,
I can do it from memory.
Here's the one in my book.
On the back.
It's in our.
On the back.
Oh, there it is. Okay. You just have to turn it over, don't you?
I don't mind.
I make a motion to enter closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A4 to discuss matters relating to location expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiations, and discuss competitive health care on behalf of Randolph Health.
You have a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are in closed session.
Hoping I said second the same exact second. All right, which one?